Hello, everyone. This is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. So we finally got that pullback. Um, it was a pretty decent one so far. Looking at this in particular, very interesting bounce off the value area high. Does it stop there? It could do, but I would hate to call that as the bottom of the pullback at this stage. One thing that is interesting, typically when you go on a run, there is some connection with the 5 weekly moving average. And we are reasonably extended from that at the moment. So it could be like that would be a pretty good target in the 65.5. There's some other things around that level, potentially back into this trend line. And there's the 64.4, 64.5 level, which was a vector candle as well. There's still a lot to the downside if it wants to do that. It's going to be tricky because picking a bottom when Bitcoin's in the start of a bull run is one of the harder things to do. If it happens over the next couple of days or even over the next week, or 2 weeks maybe, then the 20 EMA on the weekly would come into this same sort of level. So that would be a good point to bounce from as well. Oh, man. Again, it doesn't have to though. 20 is probably not the one. It might even be the 13 or something. So, but that's kind of a bit wishy-washy. I think we'll stick to the daily for the time being. And the daily 20 is sitting down around a retest of this channel that we had. And with a sort of breakout like this, you kind of do want to see that retest to confirm, especially when we're so overextended, and especially since we had this chart here that we were talking about. We've finally got that first leg of the pullback. It's taken a bit longer than it has in previous drops, but it has happened. So again, it's whether or not this here was actually just, it was a distribution in here. There was just that much interest, that much retail buying that the big guys could sell into it and the price still went up. Obviously, you know, we are getting a little bit of a pullback now, but they have started buying again. So, but just got to be careful because that can last quite a while. You know, they keep buying pretty much the whole way down and then a little bit on the way up, and then they sort of pause and start to take profit and stuff. So, you know, this would suggest there's plenty of room to come back a bit more. I've already started reopening longs. this was a pretty good level here. I think I had a take profit set for 67,200 on my short. Having a quick look. Yeah. This is actually looking like a pretty good basing pattern at the moment. Probably like to clear, just get rid of the smoothing. So just doing that to give a better idea. Visually, I think it, yeah, funnily enough, it smoothed mid-band of the Bollingers is probably more accurate. This 50 EMA is probably a decent target, but over the next couple of hours, moving back up into these vector candles here, up into 68K, is probably the extent of the pullback for now if we are going to go lower, because the 200 EMA on the 15 minutes is going to come into that level as well, which will be the 50 on the 1 hour. I mean, that there looks pretty keen to come back up, but just wait till, yeah. So we could bounce down further here. It is just coming into that first standard deviation on the Bollingers, but it's a pretty solid vector candle there that is probably going to want to recover a little bit more of first. However, you know, it is definitely downside postured, so any sort of bounces could be met with selling demand. So taking a little chunk long, probably actually see what happens around that 50 EMA on the alley and maybe get rid of some of that long and open a short again, but we'll see what happens. Did a pretty good job of taking most of the vectors on the way down, so there's not really a lot dragging it back up here for the time being. It's going to be critical if we get through the 200 EMA on the alley. That could lead to quite a bit more selling. Because there's not, like, there's a little bit of, there's a couple of vectors, like just the wicks here, they're pretty well recovered. So, I mean, that's 66,600. That's not a bad level for another little bounce, but I'd suggest if we get back down there and we break that 200, then these vectors in here are going to be of interest. I think there was just so much volume through here. I think that's an area where the market can go to get some transactions and probably freak some people out so that the big guys can start buying back in again. But that's around 65K sort of area, down into 64,800-ish. You'd expect kind of a sweep of that wick, to be honest. So 64.4 is a number that I've had a few times lately, and I think it's due to liquidation levels. We'll just bring them up. So, yeah, I mean, in the short term, 66,500 is a pretty juicy liquidation level. This guy here was funny. That was, I think at the time that got liquidated, it was about 32 million at that level. It came in and within 2 hours they swiped it with price action. So yeah, not not a hell of a lot of shorts have come in yet compared to the longs that are in down below. But yeah, it's still, I think a bounce down around that 68k is looking reasonably likely. Let's move out to the 1 month. So yeah, that there's your 64, 400-ish, 64, low 64s really. That there, 65k. For the time being though, this one here, 66, 400-ish, is looking like a pretty decent level for a bounce. We go to this 66, 400. It's only just below the current wick, so I think that's fairly likely target. But solid bottoming pattern looking possible at the moment. Interestingly, we're crossing to the downside on stochastic momentum. Bullish smart money indicators sort of pretty low now, but still blue or green or whatever color that is. Blue, I think. So it's not suggesting a massive sell signal yet, but certainly recognizing the pullback. BBWP's kind of falling a little bit as well, which you would expect on a bit of a pullback. So yeah, it's looks like it's tending towards more of a pullback at the moment. Interestingly, global liquidity just had a little bump over the last few days, so that should support the market a bit. And if we go into the general market, oh man, it's fighting hard. Sorry, I woke up with a cough this morning. Bloody annoying. Yeah, Nasdaq's not looking super healthy, but there's definitely room for a push higher. I think we're getting close enough to the election at the moment. People are starting to get a little nervous. The market looks nervous. Interesting stuff. No. So SPY pulling back a little bit today. Decent dip through the day. It looks like we might finally get a bit of a pullback on SPY and Nasdaq. The skew has dropped pretty quickly, so that's sorry, that's a sign of the market may pull back a bit more. Definitely a bearish sign there. Obviously, the VIX going to be jumping a bit. Not a huge amount though. Could be right at the beginning of a bit of a pullback. Nothing to be super scared about at the moment though, I wouldn't think. DJI's coming back a decent amount. This is probably something to be a little concerned about. DJI gold breaking below this level can lead to a pretty decent drop. As we've said before, it sort of broke previous structure back here, and that was pretty well the top of the market for a reasonable pullback over the course of a couple of weeks. And I think that's probably what you'd see. I wouldn't read too much off stochastic momentum here, but it is just about to go into the bearish control zone, and BBWP is increasing, so and that's suggesting a bit more of a pullback. ITPs, home construction, slammed. Interesting. I wonder why that was. No major news there. KRE having a decent pullback as well. A bit of profit taking by the look of it in some of these market segments. XLY, XLP is actually, I mean, it's pulled back a little bit, but nothing huge. It'd be interesting if that does keep coming down and BBWP is increasing. That could lead to a bigger pullback, which would again support a bigger pullback in the market itself. Industrials kind of still flat at the high there. IWM's pulled back, so interestingly, it's US 500 and the 100, the NAS are kind of still flattish. The bigger guys are holding up okay, but smaller guys have seen a bit of profit taking, I think. I mean, we have had a lot of reports that, we're going to, it's starting to say 7,000, 6.5, 7,000 on the S&P 500, which, like, by the end of the year, which is kind of nuts. Not once you see those sort of headlines, then pullbacks tend to come pretty soon after that. Hong Kong, sorry, Chinese stock market, Hang Seng. Be interesting to see whether this level is the bottom, 20,100-ish. It doesn't look like it. It looks like a bit of a dead cat bounce at the moment, but see how we go. It's not really got we haven't really got a turnaround on momentum or anything yet, so not a bad buying level in there still, but I'd still like to see it back to 19.4-ish, 19.3. UK 100, little false break on that. Japanese markets, that's probably going to drop more, I'd say. You're looking for most probably the 37,400-ish area on Japanese market. TLT is still dropping pretty hard, off the back of US 2-year and 10-year pumping still. That's a massive turnaround just on rate expectations. Roughly 15%. This stage, it looks like the market's kind of expecting almost a soft landing, but definitely higher for longer. Yeah, TLT back into some pretty decent levels around 91.5, I think. High yield has pulled back. So I'd suggest this is a bit more of a proper move. Yeah. It's all pointing towards just a bit of a pullback, bit of a correction. Copper, I tried to break out. If we close above these wicks on copper, then that'll be a lot more bullish, but for the time being, it may want to come back a little bit more. If the market is dropping, then copper is probably going to go with it, especially the Chinese market. Uranium's had a decent run. A lot of people on the uranium train now. Decent breakout and sort of retest of 200 EMA, and that's a pretty good support level through there. So uranium may keep going, but yeah, the pump after NVIDIA CEO said that AI won't survive without nuclear power has been pretty major. Could be a fair bit to run on uranium if that's the story and if it keeps going that way. Silver's going on a good run. Gold, a little bit of a pullback today. I heard more rumors that there's going to be a gold back. Was it gold-backed currency come out of the bricks soon? But I'll believe that when I see it. But that's certainly been someone accumulating a lot of gold lately. This durable. So we've finally got a breakout on this silver versus gold. So that's a good sign. Might still be a bit of a rough ride, but certainly silver's decent play. Broke this little structure here too, so a little bit of a pullback into that wouldn't be a bad thing. And then a push higher. The silver. I mean, that's silver's broken basically above on the wick. It's broken above this last high here from 2011. It's a long time to get back to that level. More than a lost decade in silver if you bought in at this level. Probably going to be some people taking profit. So yeah, that's that. US oil finding a bit of a bottom here by the look of it. This was our last ditch sort of level. If it's going to bounce, it pretty much needs to here. And it looks like it's trying. Probably like to see it clear today's wick at least, if not Friday's wick. But realistically, to get a turnaround on stochastic momentum would be handy. Oh, jeez. All right. Dixie. So Dixie's had a little breakout as well, which won't be helping price action on stocks and Bitcoin. Finally, the market's reacting to a high US dollar by the look of it. It's pretty overextended here. See how far it can run, but this sort of level, the 104 level's pretty well been our target for a while. As soon as we saw the breakout of the 200 EMA. So that combined with all the other little signals on Bitcoin have finally played out with a bit of downside. Aussie dollar, another retest of the 200 EMA. Doesn't look like it wants to hold that, but momentum has ticked up and it hasn't broken back below the signal line yet. So see what happens there. Wouldn't surprise me if it comes down and just sweeps this wick here and then moves back up. Probably similar on the euro. Yeah. So euro's still got a little bit to go to if it wants to sweep these lows. Probably that will still play out. Weaker currencies against the dollar for the next couple of days at least, which could mean a couple more days downside on Bitcoin, which would sort of bring us back into those key levels on pretty well everything. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average is surprisingly flat. I would have thought that would come down a little bit more with the Russell being relatively negative, but probably just means the stocks are a little bit extended. Plus, that's probably Friday. Keep forgetting it's only updates at the end of each day. So I'd expect that to come down more. Mag 7. Wow, these things have been flat for a while now. Still haven't closed below the 20-day moving average, EMA. I think we probably will. Interesting to come back into that 50 EMA there. But definitely looks like a bit of consolidation. It's just whether this is distribution or accumulation as well. Could actually be accumulation. Or Tesla. Tesla's looking really nervous going into earnings. If Tesla has a good earnings, then this thing will shoot pretty quickly. I think you'll see an island reversal and it'll just keep running. Very quickly, you'll be back up into this wick at 265-ish, possibly further. Might even try and close the gap up at 290. If it doesn't, if it has a shit earnings, the market doesn't like it, then target's 181 or lower. But momentum's down and it's been down for a while, so I mean it's hard. You are in the bearish control zone, but pullbacks into earnings quite often end up in pumps at earnings. Nvidia's still going strong. That's actually a new all-time high there. If it closes there. That's that's kind of unexpected. It looks like it was going to roll over, but maybe just sweeping some liquidity before coming down. Still love to see that pulling back into earnings, to be honest. Apple still going. Amazon's not going too bad. Meta's having a decent pullback, so still on the cards to see Meta come back into this 50 moving average on the daily, which is the top of that breakout as well. It may even sweep into this and close that gap there when it does. Again, that move coming into earnings would be a good time for a bounce. Airbnb's pushing the 200 EMA. It's pretty good. Done that. Have a quick look at ETH. ETH tried so hard. Broke back into the channel, but that's a failure of that. It could still break back into it. I mean, it got pretty close to the 200 EMA there as well, so. But yeah, I'd expect pullback. ETH to 2470-ish. Still got this green box here. It kind of did tap into that, but there's probably, if we do have a shorter term bounce, that's got to be sort of the target area, I would think. Between 2440 and 2524, somewhere around there. At least on Wix anyway. Interesting. CME hasn't pulled back. Like it's pulled back to the same level, but that chart looks a lot more bullish, sort of grind up that you get with Bitcoin sometimes. So that's interesting. I still expect that to pull back though. I'll put it this way: I wouldn't be looking at the CME chart and saying, "No, that looks more bullish. It's not going to pull back." So yeah, I think for the time being, let's have a quick look at Sol. Sol's had an interesting day. There's a doji forming. See, a lot of these are overheated. I can't see us going on a massive run from here without more of a pullback. But especially after seeing a candle or a few candles with decent pullbacks in them on Bitcoin. Yeah. Pepe. Litecoin, that's a decent pullback into the 200 on Litecoin, actually. Yeah, I mean, that's suggesting a few more days of downside as well if Bitcoin does the same thing as what Litecoin looks like it wants to do. Again, just be careful. Try and longs will be scary because longs will get sort of ripped to the upside and then potentially go your way. So, especially with the US market being a bit volatile as well. Looks like the hourly doesn't really at this stage want to break back into the Bollingers. So, yeah, overall, still kind of bearish. Like to see decent turnaround on the hourly, really. But I'll be looking for it on the 15-minute as well. Okay, just quickly, liquidation map. Interesting over the last day, there's a lot more shorts now that have come into the charts, but if we still go out to the 7-day, still a lot more long liquidations in here to take down to that 66K, come back into the 64 areas, 64 to 65, and there's still quite a bit. So we go to the 30 days, even more down here, but I don't know whether we'll get much past that. 61.5 would be interesting if we got there, but I don't think that'll happen. Lots of liquidations, which is what you'd expect. You can see here there's a lot more to the upside now. But there's also a lot of open interest to the downside here. So I'll just refresh this so we got a proper read on this. So yeah, open interest has been dropping a little as we've come up on this last leg. Surprised it didn't come up into the 50 EMA there on the 15-minute, but it is what it is. Pretty good bottoming signal there, which it actually went a little bit further than that. So typically you do see that at local bottoms, but a little bit of a topping signal here too. So been a bit of accumulation. This was the weird thing for me yesterday. So as we were running up here, we were actually dropping pretty hard on open interest right up until this peak here. And that was the strongest peaking signal. Again, we went a little bit higher than that, but then came back pretty hard. So there was a bit of open interest happening on the way down here, but that all got stopped out pretty quickly and it just kept dropping the whole time. So not many big orders picked up in here either, which is why it fell through so quickly. Excuse me. Yeah, so this is kind of suggesting that there's a fair bit of liquidity to the upside if it wants it, but overall, it's looking generally bearish. So low 66K is probably going to be an interesting area for a bounce as well. Even into 65,500. It's been a lot of big orders in at around that 65,900 for a while. This 64.4-ish is a pretty big level as well. Just because it'd be a sweep of that low there. That's actually a big bottoming signal. Now that I look at it, out of all these little bottoms here, it's well and truly darker red or brighter red. Probably not as good as that one, but it's a pretty decent one. All right, that'll do for today. I think. Don't think I've forgotten anything. Yeah. I'd expect this to pretty well be just trending up from now on as we pull back. Yeah, there's a lot of alignment for more pullback at the moment. Interesting trader's reality. It's bounced off that moving average cloud there around the 50 EMA, 15 minute. Seemingly bounced anyway. That's interesting. The psychological lows in right at the top of that vector candle too. I mean, that would be a good place for it to come back up to before it moves for bigger lows or deeper lows. Just don't know that we'll get there. It's probably going to be a pretty fucking boring day on the Aussie market again. Although there was a fair bit of volume through yesterday morning, so we might see something similar. See some volume throughout the day, really, through the Asian session. Average daily range is back inside that. Need a confluence to bring it back up close to that 68K at some stage through the day. But see how we go on price action. Definitely going to stay bearish until I see the cross of the DMI this time. Thought it was going to cross here, got so freaking close, and then just ripped to the upside. And that was pretty good confirmation there that we were headed down. All right. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to try and fix this cough.